Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'll be talking about why watching porn when your wife has a low sex drive is the opposite of helpful and really the opposite of smart. And we will explore that right as soon as I tell you to subscribe. Please do subscribe for my 81 subscriber episodes. Most recently, how to assess your wife's full potential for love by watching how she acts with the kids. Also, follow me on TikTok. I'm going to be at 1,000 subscribers soon, which means I could start doing TikTok lives, which is cool because then you can hear me talk in real time. Not that this isn't in real time because, as you've noticed, I edit nothing. So it's really as close to live as you can get because I do not have the time to go back and edit this shit once it's out. So pretty much this is just me monologuing live stream, but you get it a little bit later, like a week or so. But anyhow, let's go into porn. I've discussed porn before, but some guys still think that it is an outlet. It's an outlet specifically when your wife has a low sex drive. This is the worst time for you to watch porn. Let me give you my analogy. Let's say that you lost your job, so you make no money, and your wife, as an outlet, started to watch not only HGTV, which I had in my description as an analogy, but also Keeping Up with the Kardashians, whatever my kids say, I mispronounce it, and Real Housewives, and basically money porn. She just started watching a whole bunch of money porn where women get treated like princesses by dudes with loads and loads of money. And they get to do anything they want, including like transform their house into a mansion or whatever the fuck. I don't watch those shows, so I assume they're kind of like that. I've watched a couple of them. But they're always so stupid because like, I mean, I just really do not understand how, but I've talked about this before with the home renovation shit. Like people put themselves under so much stress and it's like you get like a different room, but whatever. The point is people love this shit. So I'm like the weirdo, not your wife. Your wife is normal if she likes this. So anyway, imagine that like you would just take that as, oh, she's really stressed out by me losing my job, so she just needs an outlet. No, you'd be like, this shit is making her even worse. She's looking down on me even more. She's more depressed about our financial situation because of the shit that she's watching. Guys say this all the time, by the way, about not only this, but about the Real Housewives level of drama. Multiple men have said to me, she watches so much reality TV, and I don't think reality TV is bad, by the way. I think reality TV could teach you a lot about like what your wife thinks and about interpersonal relationships and like a lot of stuff. And I've written about that. And I think I even have a podcast about reality TV. But anyway, a lot of guys are like, if she didn't watch that super dramatic Real Housewives shit, maybe we wouldn't have so many fights. Everybody in those goddamn shows always yelling at each other. Like maybe that's why she thinks we have to have so much drama. You know what? You're not wrong. If you expose yourself to a lot of one kind of stimulation, you start to basically prime yourself to see it and want it everywhere. This is basic psychology stuff. This is like priming with, the hell is it? The Stroop test? Well, the Stroop test is different. It's when you see red, the word red and yellow and the word yellow and red, and you have to discriminate between the stimuli. But the point is there's an entire subset of psych research that involves priming. And you can prime somebody to feel a certain way by like flashing shit on a screen, just words. Imagine naked women, you know? I mean, that's like a lot more effective than seeing the word sad on a screen. If you could see sad on a screen and feel sad, well, when you see a woman's like naked vagina on a screen, do you not want more sex? I don't even understand how guys can tell themselves that this shit is not priming them to be hypersexual. It is. You know, masturbation is one thing. So if your wife has a sex drive of like a tablecloth and like there's just no way for you to cope without having, you know, physical release, all right, like maybe jack off once a week, you know, but like do it without porn. If you are looking at porn when your wife has a low sex drive, you're doing two things. You're telling yourself that there's lots of different women out there in the world that like to do stuff that your wife doesn't like to do, which believe me, you don't don't need that streamed into your brain in Technicolor heroin, which is pretty much what this is. And also, you're fluffing up your own sex drive artificially just at a time when, to be a good partner, you should have a lower one, right? Because if your wife is aging, she has multiple children, she's aging. I think the majority of y'all listening are like 35 to 55, and your wife is like into the aging process. She is not 17 years old anymore, or 27 even, where she could have like loads of spontaneous desire all the time. She's older, and her body's been through some war in terms of having kids. And so and also probably she's either depressed or anxious or something, because a lot of women are. So the point is, her sex drive is low. If you're listening to this, her sex drive is low. And if her sex drive isn't low and you're listening to it, cool. Her sex drive's still lower than yours, most likely. So it still applies. So if her sex drive is low, why the fuck are you artificially priming yours, like fluffing yourself by looking at porn? It makes no sense. It's not being a good team player. So if there were shit that you couldn't do, like if you find it really hard to be very verbally romantic because you're just like a kind of laconic kind of guy, would you want her to be compulsively nightly watching romantic movies where the guys have like these silver tongues and can say all sorts of like sonnets, like just right off the cuff? No. If she kept doing that shit, she would be doing two things. A, she would start subconsciously expecting that from you. No matter what the hell she says, intellectually she could say, oh, that's just a movie, but she still kind of thinks that that's like how shit is going to go down in real life. She thinks it more and more because she's exposing herself to it more and more. So she starts to think that maybe there are guys like that in the world, even just below the level of consciousness. And that, that would be really nice. And that would be a lot different than you, Fred, my husband, who doesn't say two words to me, And what else would she be doing? She would be making herself like primed again for that stuff in regular life. So if she was watching a whole bunch of romantic movies and stuff all the time, then when she was looking at TikTok or Instagram or whatever, her mind subconsciously would be more attuned to, primed to pick up on romantic gestures that she saw in her feed. She's just going to be more hyper aware of these things. So when she might have scrolled past somebody saying that her husband sent her roses at work before, maybe she would have scrolled past it. If she's making herself hyper attuned to romantic gestures by feeding them into her brain every night, then she is going to be more aware of that stuff in the environment. And this is something that happens with porn a lot, is that if you're watching porn, you start to think that there's all these women out there that are just down to fuck all the time. And that if the Starbucks barista looks at you with a smile, she's really thinking that it would be nice to be in bed with you. No, she's not, but it starts to seem more likely because you are projecting all of these images of naked, ready, and willing women into your brain. And as I've said numerous times, it's even worse with the amateur shit, because then it's like your brain can't even discriminate. You really do think that every normal looking woman is just, secretly some sort of gangbanger. And in reality, they're not. But your brain can't tell that because you're giving your brain all this artificial stimulation. And you're priming the pump, no pun intended, for you to have this super high sex drive that you probably don't have at your age. You probably really do not have it, but if you continue to jack off all the time to porn, then it's like you have it. And that's not helping because your wife has a lower than average sex drive. So what do you need to have a higher than average one for? It's not being a good team player. It would be like if your wife gains a lot of weight. A lot of you are going to be, I am in this situation. You're going to think that you are in this situation. So if your wife gained a lot of weight and you started compulsively every night looking at super thin, fit women, which now that I'm talking about it, is going to be a separate issue with the porn because it's all body types, blah, blah. That's what guys say. But you know what? It's not really all body types in exactly the same percentiles. So, if your wife isn't exactly how you want her to look and she's not how she wants her to look and she gained weight and aged, then if you're looking at a preponderance of women that did not gain weight, then why would you be doing that? It's just making a comparison point in your head. No matter what your intellectual brain thinks, your emotional lizard brain, your visceral brainstem is making these comparisons. Just like you probably wouldn't like her to scroll through like bodybuilder pictures every night if you're a guy who struggles with having a beer belly. Like, you really wouldn't. You wouldn't find it, quote, motivating, like some guys make up. No, you wouldn't, because the average guy can never look like an Instagram bodybuilder. And if that's what your wife was looking at all the time, you would be correctly irritated and weirded out. So that's the same as what she thinks about the porn. So if you want to be a good partner to a low sex drive woman, am I saying to get rid of your natural sex drive? Certainly not. I'm saying let's figure out what it is. You know, if you're 45 years old, it's not where it was when you were 25. If you have kept it where it was when it was 25 through an elaborate machination in your mind of jerking off to, like, you know, crazier and crazier porn over the years, which is what a lot of guys do without even realizing it, then yes, you have artificially created, very tenuously, this castle in the sand of, you know, libido that seems like it's where it was when you were 25, but it's really not. It would be a hell of a lot better for you to see what your innate sex drive is at this age without artificially fluffing it up every night with porn. And then, you know, y'all might be a lot more compatible, you and your wife. Also, you may not have a chip on your shoulder because subconsciously you're comparing her to all of these women. God knows you could find more, hundreds more every day if you look, that thousands, millions, who knows, that are doing stuff that your wife doesn't do. So the same as you would not want her all the time to be comparing you to men that are doing her exact love language, you wouldn't. So what's her love language? Let's say it's gifts. Should she look at men who are buying their wives shit all day on Instagram? Would you be like really cool with that? Certainly not. That would seem like not being a team player to just compulsively, like if there was Instagram of hot, rich, bodybuilding men who give their wives cars for their 40th birthday. Would you really want her on that? That's what porn is. But like, you know, for guys. And so if you wouldn't really want her to be looking at, you know, a buff bodybuilder mopping the floor before he writes her a love poem, massages her feet, and like the next day takes her to Maui, then don't watch the porn, because that shit, if she was doing it, would be bad for your marriage. You doing what you're doing is bad for the marriage too. Again, and guys are like, the reason that you could tell that, you know, it's a porn thing and not just a getting off thing, because guys are like, oh yeah, well, if I need some physical release. So I said, cool, get some physical release then. How about you do that in the shower? No porn. They're like, well, listen, if you really had the sex drive of Superman like you're pretending to, then it wouldn't be, because remember when you used to have like wet dreams back in the day? There's obviously been like a decrement in your sex drive because you're an aging mammal like everybody else. So if it really doesn't sound too cool to be jerking off without porn in the shower, then maybe you don't need to be jerking off every day, right? I mean, let's really think about it. So in that case, you would have a hell of a lot more empathy for your wife's naturally decreasing sex drive over time if you noted the decrease in your own. But if you're protecting yourself and your ego from seeing and observing this decrease because you're artificially fluffing yourself up with porn, well then, how are you being a good husband? You're not doing what you would want her to do in the same situation, which is to be a team player and to not fill her brain with comparison points and kind of priming the pump to want things that aren't you. So that is really what you need to think about if you're in this situation. Are you being a team player? Isn't it possible that you and your wife would be a little bit closer together on the sex drive spectrum if you were to stop watching porn all the time? Now, for the guys that watch porn like 15 minutes a week, maybe it's not doing anything. Maybe it still is. What do you have to lose really by trying not to do it for a month, you know? So same as you would want your wife to say about anything you don't like her to do, you know? And you have a lot more power or hand in you could force her hand a lot more in trying shit that's outside her comfort zone, which I know you would like to do if you tried stuff that was outside your comfort zone. So particularly if she's aware of your porn habit, and many guys keep it super secret. The more addicted it is, the more secret they keep it. But especially if she knows about it, you could be like, hey, you've never really liked me watching porn. I'm going to stop for 30 days, see where I'm at. If you really want to see her be happy, say, maybe my sex drive isn't where I always thought it was. Who knows? I've been watching this shit all the time. It's like junk food for the mind. So I don't know. I mean, maybe really, if I went off it for a little while, we would be closer together in our sex drive. It would be a nice thing to say. And she would be like, what? Did you have a lobotomy? And she would be super happy that you decided on your own to try to do something that is against what your ego would want you to do for the benefit of the marriage. That's like, women love that shit. You know who else loves that shit? Men love that shit. Everybody loves when a partner puts their own ego down a level and the relationship up a level, right? So you could try to do that, or you could try to do it on your own if your ego can't handle the idea of telling her that you're experimenting to see what your natural sex drive is. Then you could do it on your own and see. But many, many guys that do this see, wow, you know what? Like the first little bit of time, I start looking at more women and I start feeling like a real horn dog, which is good for the old ego anyway. And then after like a couple weeks, I actually go lower than what I thought that my sex drive was at when I was watching porn all the time. Because you're right. Wow, I'm a smart guy. I know about priming, and I guess that was right, because I was seeing sex everywhere, and now I'm not. And the variable that changed in this single case design experiment was that I'm not feeding a constant image of women having sex into my brain all the time, which now that I think about it, has to have some kind of effect. I mean, seriously, I mean, it's I'm laughing, but it's not funny because there's so many guys that are super smart about everything, but just want to not think about what this influx of constant sexual images does to their brain, as though there's a world in which it could have no effect. Of course, this is not no effect. Of course not. Of course, it's not just an outlet, as nothing is an outlet. As your wife scrolling on social media compulsively is not just an outlet. Everybody is doing something that releases dopamine in some way, and there's positive effects and negative effects. Anything that gives a short-term dopamine burst, you got to interrogate it to see if there's any long-term negative effects. Same with drugs, same with drinking, same with anything, right? Same with jerking off. Same with looking and comparing your wife, comparing herself to the rich and famous on Instagram or the, financially well-heeled on whatever reality show. Okay, so hopefully this was useful. Maybe it did 1% to change your mind on this topic. Then I will be happy. And I will talk to y'all soon. Please do subscribe. Bye-bye.